What was your first entrepreneurial act? Were you doing things? Were you mowing lawns as a kid?
No, I was in a punk rock band, and I would say that in a lot of ways that was entrepreneurial for me. Of how do we create something that I think would be appreciated by the people we were trying to serve, which was our classmates, and how do we get shows? I think that the same sort of leadership that I feel and creativity that I feel in a startup, it felt that way in the bands. And this is actually the first time I'm tying, being in bands together with a startup. But, we created a brand around the band and swag and a lot of the same things you do with a startup. So that was really fun. My dad was a comically bad entrepreneur. When I was 15, he got laid off from his job at the bank, which he was at for a decade or something like that. And he never really got another stable job after that. He's tried to start things. And so when I was young, I remember in high school, I used to have to answer the phone, Skievaski Fine Jewelry, because he started a jewelry business. And he would sell stuff on eBay. I was always just confused as to why he was doing things the way that he was. And I realized much later on, so much of my entrepreneurial journey was trying to, after I realized I wanted to be an entrepreneur, trying to not be like my dad in that process, trying to, seeing how he did it and being there's got to be a better way. And so I became a student of the lean startup methodology because I saw a lot of waste in what he was doing. For instance, he wanted to start a sausage business. And so the first thing he did was he bought a big saran wrap machine that they use to roll your industrial, meat stuff before he even learned how to make sausage or figured out if anyone wanted sausage. And so it was stuff like that where I was always why are you buying that now? And not figuring out if people want your product.
This podcast is brought to you by B Micro, a company I'm deeply passionate about because I founded it in 2018. It's USDA organic freeze-dried microgreens for everyday nutrition and detox. Sprinkle them on any meal or take them as a capsule to enjoy the many healthy benefits. Shop now at bmicro.farm. Use code STEVE15 to save.
So yeah, that was a big part of my entrepreneurial journey, was just kind of seeing how he never really made it and how he had a lot of dreams and for whatever reason wasn't able to make those dreams turn into anything that could support him. And so was starting my first company and, telling myself I don't want to be like my dad, and using the lean startup and we were doing this company in healthcare technology. And it was going really well. And there was so much of my ego on the line around how can I prove to myself and others that that I can do it, that I'm the real deal. And it was around this time too, when we started the company, that I had my first psychedelic journeys. And so much of the message that I was receiving from those experiences were helping me understand the impact that my behaviors had on the world, that in starting a company, I can impact, not only our employees, but the customers and our customers' customers. And in healthcare, we're talking about human lives. And so a lot of the psychedelic epiphany that I brought back to the company was around making sure that we focused on that impact. And that I think really drove a culture in our company that made us ultimately more successful than I think we would have been otherwise. And so long story short, this company I was the president and founder of it for 10 years. We raised $100 million in venture capital and private equity, had 300 employees over that time period, probably more. Yeah, we made a pretty big impact in the healthcare technology space. It's infrastructure tech, company called Redox. And 10 years into it, I was realizing that I wasn't learning as much as I was at the beginning, and I wasn't feeling like I was contributing as much. And I took a sabbatical, went on retreat, did some psilocybin and MDMA and in a therapeutic setting. And the download I got was that the company didn't need me anymore. And it was sort of a very pointed ego death around if I am not Niko, founder of Redox, who am I? And this is the company's logo tattooed on my arm here because I lost a bet with our sales team. But it's I wear the company on my sleeve, right? It's who I am. And so I had that experience of like, well, they don't need me, but do I actually need them to support my identity? And as I was going through this, a month into my sabbatical or so, I found out my dad had cancer. And my relationship with him over the time that I was growing this company had certainly faded, diminished. And there was nothing, wrong with our relationship, but it was just, we just grew apart. And he moved to the Philippines with my mom, where she's from. And so I hadn't seen him in a couple years. And I just knew that it was a stop on my healing journey that I had to get to at some point. And so I was talking with him about his diagnosis, and he wasn't sure what he was going to do. I was feeling some anxiety building up around it. Certainly, when you get a diagnosis like that, there's a lot of unknowns. He was also going down the rabbit hole of things he could find on the internet, all sorts of stuff that are miracle cures to cancer. He started drinking olive oil from the bottle and stuff like that. I kind of leaned into that a little bit, and I was like, people are using psilocybin after cancer diagnosis to help them reconcile their lives and what they're going to do about it. And they're also using psilocybin to help with smoking cessation and alcohol use disorder, which were, certainly the contributors to his cancer. And he agreed to do a journey. So I flew to the Philippines with 10 grams of mushrooms, ground up in pills. And before leaving, I had worked with some facilitators in Boulder to try to help figure out how I could actually sit with him in a way that he could get what he wanted out of it, and to really make sure that I didn't bring my own agenda to the journey, because I certainly knew what I would have wanted him to get out of it. And kind of, my whole relationship with him was seemingly trying to change him. But yeah, flew to the Philippines. I sat with him in a journey, and he didn't talk the whole time. I was sitting there with my notebook ready to document everything. He didn't say anything, and I kind of just logged time, and he had a smoke break right in the middle of it. And I'm like, how are you standing right now? You just took 5 grams of mushrooms.
Did you take some too?
No. I was by the book, trying to do it the therapeutic way. We had East Forest playing. It was very, as you would in a clinical trials setting. And after a few hours, he got up and took this eye mask off and was like, "You hungry? Should we get lunch?" And I'm like, "I guess we're done." So we went and got lunch, and I was trying to, I was instructed by the facilitators to not try to process it right away, give him a day to talk about it. But what I noticed immediately was that he was at ease. He was chilling. He happily had a beer and a cigarette at lunch and didn't have the kind of anxiety or self-consciousness about it that he had before, knowing that may have contributed. And essentially, he just never talked about getting better again. He was just at peace with where he was. And instead of what I thought we would do is I would get him on a plane and we'd fly back to the US and do chemo and surgery and all that stuff and try to help him fight it. Instead, we went to the beach and we hung out and we listened to Pink Floyd. I smoked a cigarette with him, bought him beer, hung out. We used the mushrooms for fun instead of for therapeutic purposes. And then I said goodbye to him and flew back home. And a week later, he died.
Wow.
Yeah. And what I experienced in that couple of weeks I got to spend with him was probably for one of the first times in my life, actually just seeing him as a guy, as a guy living in the Philippines, trying to get by in the world, having fun. And I saw all the parts of me that are like him and all the parts of me that I appreciate that I got from him. Yeah. And not trying to run away from that anymore. So I got so much healing out of the experience, and seeing him able to die in that way, in hindsight, is perfectly aligned with who he was. If he somehow, after this trip was we're going to fight it and I'm going to quit drinking and smoking and we're going to do everything we can, it would have been a different person. That's not who that wouldn't be aligned with him. Yeah. So, I came back, I used these natural medicines to help with my grieving process. Was able to work with my mom as well, and she saw some of what happened with my dad, and so she was open to trying as well. And at this point, I hadn't worked at my company in like 6 months, and I called my co-founder and was like, I don't think I work here anymore. And he's like, no, I don't think you do either. And so I left and didn't know what I was going to do, but I turned to the medicine and just got more interested in, like, I knew what it had done for me over my life, but seeing what it did for my dad at the end of his, seeing what it was doing for my mom, realizing that the impact that it could have could be for so many different use cases than I had thought possible, and for so many more than all of the research is talking about with serious mental illness and the dramatic impact it's having there. So I was just motivated to pull on that thread and follow that path, and kind of led to this direction that I'm in now.